Huh?
Can you mama send him money?
$20?
Like to stay.
Because he bribe anybody with that.
Okay.
Thanks anyway.
Sure.
But thank you for being willing to.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Ted, UTEC?
Well, I'm gonna talk with you folks about your favorite subject, electricity. You just heard a lot about your electric department and money. I'm actually gonna talk a little bit about money too, but, first of all, my name is Ted Orrell, and just to remind you why I'm here and what my relationship is with you, several months ago, you had a man named Kevin O'Donnell that had been working with the 4 towns over here in the eastern part of the United States for a number of years. And Kevin had determined that he was going to retire. In fact, I think he knew that he had some health issues. So he contacted us because he knew us, our firm, and wanted to know, he said he did not want to leave his clients high and dry, walk in one day and say, okay, I'm gone, have a good life. He wanted to leave his clients in the hands of someone that he felt comfortable with and that he felt would have the same level of care and all that kind of stuff that he did, and wanted to know if our firm, Utility Technology, would be interested in doing that. The answer is yes. Now, so Kevin passed away shortly after that, a big surprise to everybody, but we are here and are contracted with you, also with Black Creek, with Stantonsburg and Sharpsburg to provide services. Now, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me and our firm so you'll know who's really talking to you. Let me get this thing to, there you go, that's my picture. So I graduated from the University of Arkansas. I think I mentioned to somebody here that I was from Arkansas. I'll tell you how I got to North Carolina. For those of you that like football, you may have noticed that Arkansas Razorbacks did win a football game this weekend against Florida. It was a close game, 36 to 33. I prefer them not so tight, but at least we did come out on the top end. I graduated in 71 and I stayed and got my master's degree in 72. And then I went to work for a large engineering firm, you see it up there, called Black & Beach. And I was there for 18 years. And it was with Black & Beach that the firm, Black & Beach, bought an engineering company in Ashburn, North Carolina, a civil engineering company as a matter of fact. And they decided that they would like to start a regional office on the other side of the coast from where they were. Black & Beach is headquartered in Kansas City. And because I had clients that was doing work in South Carolina and North Carolina, I was given the opportunity to move out here, which I happily accepted. My career continued on very nicely with Black & Beach. And with that acquisition of a corporate entity that became named Black & Beach Inc., I was then named the senior vice president for Black & Beach Inc. So a period of my time out here, I had experience in learning about managing and running companies more than just doing engineering work. The problem was that the whole game plan was that ultimately I would move back to Kansas City. And after being in North Carolina, I didn't want to go back to Kansas City, but I didn't really have a choice. So I had to make a decision, what did I want to do? Did I want to go work for another firm? Did I want to get in another business altogether? Or maybe I wanted to start my own business. And that's the route that I took, put a business plan together, took a couple of the guys that I had actually recruited into the Asheboro office out of NC State, and started the company. And that was in 1989, and it was actually near the end of 1989. So I've been in that position ever since. We have grown. We have offices in Asheboro, North Carolina, as well as down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The thing that is very different about us, our firm, and Kevin O'Donnell. Kevin is a one-man operation. He primarily focused on financial issues. We're a full-range engineering firm, and as a full-range engineering firm, we design stuff. As you look up here, we're experienced in all manner of facilities design, so substations, transmission lines, even generation projects, we do. But down there at the bottom, you'll see that we are also very experienced in the same kinds of work, and perhaps maybe even have a little bit more expertise than Kevin did, because we have more resources, that are doing rate studies and cost of service studies and things like that. And also notice that that says electric, water, wastewater, and even city non-revenue producing departments. So when it comes to addressing utility rate kinds of things and cost to serve customers and things like that, we do that. And I'll show you some examples of where we have done that. And that's what your greatest interest is in us now. However, bear in mind that you're dealing with a group of people that design things. We design things for Duke Energy, we design things for other municipals all around, for co-ops. So we are very steeped in the actual hands-on system studies and designs. We literally know all about electric utility work. And again, if you'll remember, I got my degree in 71 and master's in 72, and you can do some quick calculations to realize that that's a lot of experience, a lot of years. And we have a lot of people in our company that have those kinds of years of experience. Sure, we've got youngsters too, but we've got a lot of gray hair or no hair that are able to guide these folks and do work with them. Where all have we done work that you would be interested in? Somebody was mentioning, they knew about Seneca. Seneca is one of our big clients. We just finished a very major cost of service and rate study and put those rates into effect for Seneca. And it addressed the water system, the wastewater system, the electric system, and we also addressed all of the various non-revenue producing departments like the recreational department, police department, fire department, the judicial court system, where they have costs and how do those costs get financed and what are the ways to do that. We worked with Seneca in setting up their budgets, and not that that's our job. Basically, our job is the cities say, here's our budget. We determine what the rates need to be in order for you to get that revenue. Fairly determined rates. We call that a cost of service study. I'm going to talk more about cost of service studies in a second, but you actually have a man, and he was here with me when I first met with you folks. There he is, Lewis Davis. Lewis would have been here tonight, but he had surgery several months ago, and he actually had a doctor's visit to get staples removed and things like that. But that's Lewis. Now, I want you to look at his credentials. Lewis, number one, is a PE. He's an electrical engineer, but he spent a pretty good amount of his career at Progress Energy, Carolina Power and Light, Progress Energy, and then Duke Progress. And notice that he got involved, he had different jobs there that got into rates areas, wholesale contract manager, and then business development manager. I sat across from Lewis for a lot of years as I was representing Seneca and various other places that Progress Energy wanted to provide wholesale power contracts for. So he and I got to know each other very well. After the merger, Lewis decided that he wanted to initially go off on his own, so he left Progress Energy still as a young guy, and that's a recent picture of him, so he, as you can see, he's still, at least he looks young. He's not quite as young as he looks, but anyway. He left Progress Energy, and then it was shortly after that he started working with us, and he's been with us ever since. He is our business development manager, but he works with communities like you in the area of rates and power supply and all that sort of stuff. All right, now let's talk about Lucama's electric system for a minute. Right now, you have got a power supply contract that, this is it right here, and it says that it's with NTE Carolinas. That's who actually built and designed that plant that's in Kings Mountain. But they sold that company, and so now it's managed by Carolina Energy Company, or Partners, thank you, I was looking for that word. And we know those folks. Lewis knew them before and have had communications with them, but they have one plant that uses natural gas to produce electricity. It's in Kings Mountain, and that's 264 miles away. Now, that may seem weird that you're buying power from someplace so far away, but that's very normal in today's world, because transmission systems provide capacity that a customer buys from somebody else and wheels it across their system, of course, for a charge. But that charge isn't something that, like Duke Energy or Duke Progress, just sit around and think, well, I think I'd like to make some more money and charge this for transmission services. These costs all have to go before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, where they show what their costs are, they show what their plans are to upgrade or expand the transmission system, and then say, these are our capacity rates that justify, that will pay for all that. And the FERC ends up approving that, or saying, well, we won't approve that, and they come up with a different number. But the point is that, just like everybody else, and even themselves, Progress Energy Retail has to pay the cost to their transmission company to get power to their retail spots. So the idea is transmission systems are intended to be fair for everybody that needs to use those transmission systems, and that's what you do. So you're buying power from this unit that's 264 miles away, and it's transmitted to here as well as several other places. And that power goes down to Greenwood, South Carolina, Concord. There's a number of other municipal utilities and co-ops that buy power out of that facility. Now, I mentioned to you that it is a natural gas combined cycle plant. Now, combined cycle has been a very efficient way to produce electricity for the last 10 years. What a combined cycle plant is it has two pieces. One of the pieces of the plant has a combustion turbine, which is a big jet engine, and the hot gas turns those turbines and it makes electricity. It's kind of the front end of the unit. But there's so much heat generated that when you run pipes through there and you boil that water, you can make a steam generator on the back end. And so the gas that burns and makes electricity also produces steam that makes more electricity. So therefore, these kinds of plants can be very efficient. The kicker is that gas used to be fairly expensive. I remember back in the early 70s that we're about to run out of gas, and you can't use gas in the burner of a power plant anymore. You've got to get rid of all your plants that do this. And all of a sudden, the industry figured out how to do fracking, and they started finding out that there's not just 50 years worth of gas. We've got thousands of years worth of gas that we can get out at an economical cost with fracking. So that has driven the cost of natural gas down. But you still got to get natural gas from where you get it out of the ground to where it needs, and that's the pipeline, and you all know about how that has been kind of getting into environmental problems. And all of this has kind of caused the gas to every now and then spike. This last winter, extremely cold, and the demand for natural gas went very high. You folks use that gas in your plant to generate your electricity, but so does everybody else want it, and the price spiked up. And that's why you had to raise your electric rates to cover those costs. And it wasn't a study that was necessarily done, it wasn't a cost of service or rate study, it was, we've got to have this, and you raised your rates to get that revenue that you needed. Then, about July, it got very hot, and you ended up doing the same thing. So the point that I'm making here is that when you're got all of your eggs in one basket, that there can be some periods of time where that cost spikes and you've got to be prepared to handle it or know what to do about it. If you were buying your power from a different kind of company, now I'm not saying that to sell this, I'm just telling you, if it were somebody else that has nuclear power plants, and they've got coal power plants, and they have gas like you do, and they have hydro, and they've got solar, then you have a mix, so that one of those might have spiking prices, but it's not their whole asset. So that's what you're dealing with right now with those kinds of costs that have gone up. All right, now, what about, what are the things that have to be addressed or your rates have got to provide money for? Because I think it's important that you and the citizens realize that you don't just arbitrarily raise rates not knowing what the rates are designed to meet a specific reason and a specific basis. So you've got wholesale power costs that I've just been talking about, and associated with that, and like with this plant, there is capacity cost. It costs something to construct that plant that it produces 500 megawatts, and so there's a cost just for that capacity, and it's exactly like you going down and decide you're going to build a home. And you go to the bank and they loan you money for your home, and they say, no, it's going to be a 30-year mortgage, the interest rate's going to be 6%, and you're going to pay for that every month. So you can do the math, and you say, okay, for the next 30 years, every month I have to pay this many dollars to finance that investment that I made. It's the same thing with capacity cost, except that they then divide that by the number of kilowatts that the thing produces, and they charge you and all the other customers those dollars per kilowatt that you need. So as your loads go up and down, you're paying more or less of the capacity based on what your needs are. All right, now you've got your energy production cost. That's the gas. So you got people that operate the plant, you got the cost of the fuel, and that all cranks out to be a cost of energy. And frankly, I don't believe that this plant is trying to make any profit on gas production. What they're doing is making their profit on what they said is their capacity cost. So when the costs go up, it's not that they're making more money, it's their product's more expensive. But you've got cost of power, losses through the transmission system to get it here, and then the capacity cost of the transmission delivery system. All those things are out of your control, but they're costs that your rates have got to cover. Now, that's not your only cost that you have. You have trucks, equipment, linemen, servicemen, warehousing costs. You have a billing department. You've got administrative people. You've got various capital costs for computers and office furniture, buildings. All these things that you see up there are costs that you have to operate your system. So what you have to do in doing a study and coming up with the rates is you have to put all this together, and you do what's called a cost of service study. And by the way, I'm not here trying to sell a cost of service study. I do believe that you need one. We very well are able to do that. I believe that the other three cities that are kind of your sister cities, if you will, are in the same situation. So it probably would be a good idea. But I want you to understand what it is when you're doing a cost of service study. You're going to ultimately take all of these costs that you've got as a city that you've got to provide from your electric department, and you're going to determine what we call fixed costs. What that means is if you're a customer of Lucama, you have certain costs every month, and it doesn't matter how much electricity you use. You are creating certain costs, and you need to pay your share of that. That's what we call the fixed cost in a rate. Then you've got demand cost. That's a function of how much demand are you putting on the system at the time that your demand charges are developed by the power supplier. And then finally, you've got energy cost. So those are the three categories that you go through and determine what your costs are that has to be put out to your customers. Now, here's an example of different classes of customers that you have. You've got residential customers, and they have, residential customers have a similar load pattern every day. And in the summertime, it's different than it is in the wintertime, but they are creating demands on your system in a unique way. It's called the residential way. Commercial classes of customers create demand on your system differently than a residential customer. And industrial customers, if you had any, do the same thing. Churches and schools, and someone has mentioned to me about farms. You've got farms too, and so each one of these different classes of customers have a different, cause you cost in different manners. So the purpose of taking these costs that you got is to fairly figure out what do the rates need to be, so each class of customer has a rate that they're gonna pay based on how they are creating your cost. It's a very fair type of thing that's done. How frequently does a cost of service study have to be performed? Our idea is that we like to do our studies in what we call a dynamic basis. That means that I don't want you to have, once you do a study, I don't want you to ever have to start from scratch and do that study again. So what we do is we'll get all your costs, or the way we do these regardless if it's you or somebody else. And we go through this and we say, now here's what your budget is for this year. Here's what you think your budget may look like next year, and next year, we get 5 years. And we go through what we believe to be any kind of load growths, any kind of changes in fuel cost, and all this other kind of stuff. And we determine what the rates for each class of customer appear like they need to be in order to produce the revenue that you need for each one of these years. Now, after you do that, you may see that, well, we're okay this year, but we got to have a rate increase next year, and then the numbers show that we've got to have a rate increase every single year based on these cost numbers. And you may not want to do that. What you would prefer to do is to go ahead and have a rate increase now that's a little larger than what you need, and take that revenue and you put it away as a rate stabilization fund that you will then plan to use instead of having another rate increase a couple of years from now. You let it grow some interest, whatever. And so you could make that decision. You may want to increase rates every year, or you may not. But you would have a 5-year plan that says this is what it looks like. Now here's the beauty of this thing. You move through the first year and you're done with it, and you got real numbers. What you do is that drops off, and you've got the model. You go ahead and decide what that 5th year is going to look like again, and you just find out what your rates are going to look like for, again, a 5-year period. And as I was telling Darlene, just imagine how well you can sleep at night if you've got that good a picture of what you think your future costs are going to be and how you're going to pay for them. And you can have that with this kind. Now, I'm not telling you everything's going to come out exactly the way the study shows, but by doing it this way, if things happen differently, then you are able to adjust in those areas and have a game plan always 5 years in advance. So you'll see that I've got how often should they be done? They should be done one time, but they should be kept current annually. So again, a year drops off, you add the next year, you look at all your budgets, you make your best estimates now, what you think those budgets are going to be, what costs are going to be, and you have a game plan, and you continue to keep these things current and updated. And that's the kind of thing that we recommend that you and all the other towns should do. All right, so that's who we are and what we're doing. And again, these cost increases that you've experienced are mostly driven because there have been several things that have caused those gas costs to go up. It was not only the cold winter, but also the fact that you use more. And I even have heard that you have had some customers that claim that their cost had doubled, your rates went up. Your rates did not go up because of that, it's consumption. If you were normally using 500 kilowatt hours in a month, and it got extremely cold and you used 1,000 kilowatt hours, those are a little bit extreme numbers, but your cost just almost doubled. And it wasn't that the rate went up, it's that you used more. And I know a lot of citizens don't want to look at that bill and see how many kilowatt hours they use, they just kind of maybe want to complain. I want you to understand that's, and everybody to understand, that's not what's going on. You do a good job of managing your system, and you did what you have to do to get the revenue. So, with that being said, I'm gonna shut up for a minute and see what questions any of you might have. And again, I'm not saying, hey, let's go do a cost of service study. Y'all need to think about that. What I suggest we're gonna do is, as your people that help you now, is to see what we can do with your power supplier to more economically hedge purchase gas, so that you're gonna buy gas maybe a little more than what it costs now, but you've got 60% of the gas that you're gonna need in at a fixed price, and you're gonna kind of gamble on the others. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, I do believe that you are due for a cost of service study, and see if you would be interested in seeing what your rates need to be. And then in the process of doing that, see if we can help you identify areas that you can protect and keep your costs down. My goal would be to help you drive your costs down and make you as efficient and a city you'd be very proud of in terms of those costs. So now I'll shut up. Who has a question?
If I might, from the back real quick, because it was on the slide, and I just want to make sure everybody understands. When it comes to power, what you're charged for power is based on the peak daily rate, not the average daily rate. So whatever the peak usage is, that's what the charges come from. So that's an important thing. I don't think a lot of people understand that you know, your power, you may not you know, overall, your average may be less, but you're getting charged peak when you're getting that power in. So,
Okay, one point of clarification, that's a part of the charge.
sure.
And
I understand
it's the demand part of it, but the energy part of it is different, and there's even a more complex part that says, okay, you use this many kilowatt hours, how many did you use during this time period when cost was this? And how many did you use during this time period? So it also is a function of time. You are correct, but the point I wanted to make is that is a piece of that cost. And if you can do anything to keep your demands down during the time of your power supplier's peak, which is something that we do for several of our municipals that are on that are getting their wholesale power from St. Cooper, they operate load side generation. And it's a huge amount of savings that they get. You know, they're making money to the tune of about $20 a kW for every kW that they can reduce, and that is allowed by the power supplier during that peak hour. So, next question. Come on, this is fun. This is electricity.
We had, when Kevin was here, we done that pre-buy, I call pre-buy for gas.
Yeah.
Ahead of time.
Hedge buying.
It helped us a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, that could be something that we initially could go look at and talk with your power supplier about, see what all the details are about that. And we've done that with Seneca when they were doing in the same kind of boat as you are. And so let's just say that right now that gas is $4 a million BTU. BTU is an energy rate. And so you say, well, okay, I'm paying $4 a million BTU. I don't know what I'm going to pay in the wintertime or the summertime, but what if I could purchase 60% of my gas requirement for the next 3 years and pay $5 a million BTU for it, a little bit more than I'm paying now, and the supplier buys off on it and says, I'll do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, I've got 40% that is at market price, and it's less than I'm going to guarantee I'll pay for the other 60%. Now you're making a gamble, but you're already deciding I can live with $5 a million BTU. My rates, everything works fine. So that way, if it goes to $10, you're not going to get stuck. So that is that's what I think is a very good thing to be done right now, is see what can be done to make that gas hedging, and you're hedging right now. On your bill, there is a credit that you're getting for wherever you hedge purchase. Right now. Others? Okay, so my purpose is not to sell anything, not to convince you to do anything. We're already yours. And you've got our ear for anything that you need. But I am telling you that, if you decide you want to move forward with this, we're experienced in that. Our job will be to help you save money. So thank you for inviting us, and I'll sit down and let you continue on with the meeting.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Request for board approvals, designated official resolution for North Carolina ABC Commission. The designated official resolution for ABC.
I thought that was CP's patrol car was